Hello, my beautiful motorheads. Welcome to Feroce, where we inspire you to live fiercely. I'm your host, Annick Magac. There's a topic in motorcycling that most people think they know what they're talking about, or know what they're experiencing, or know what they're looking for. But it's one of those elusive topics that I think in reality, a lot of people don't really understand. And that is suspension. Today we have Mike Alex of Suspension Technologies. They are a Florida-based USA manufacturing company that makes custom suspension for primarily Harleys, Indians, and Trikes. Today we talk about what to look for in suspension, what's important, and how it can improve your bike, and more importantly, how it can improve your experience riding. It's one of those things that, it's not particularly sexy because you don't necessarily see the suspension, whether that's your rear shock or your front forks. Like, a lot of the components are hidden. So it's not necessarily where people want to spend their money, but it's something that's incredibly important to making sure that you have a good ride. Today we go into detail, and Mike shares his knowledge about suspension and why you should upgrade. Mike, how did you get into the world of suspension?
To be honest with you, I started way back when I used to drag race, and I raced against a lot of guys that could buy big money engine programs and things like that. And I had to learn to go fast and make the car work different ways. So I started working on suspensions. I read Hot Rod magazine and a bunch of stuff, and I started working on suspensions. But for the motorcycle side of it, I did a lot of work. I was a race car engineer, and I did a lot of work in the NASCAR world and in drag racing. I was working at one of the teams. One day I bought a Road King. I rode it that weekend, and then on a Monday I was working with one of the teams, and I was complaining about how terrible it rode. And one of the guys that I worked with, great guy, big old Southern boy down in North Carolina, he, in a real Southern voice, says, Mike, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I make suspension and shocks for race cars. Well, he said, well, why don't you make a set for your motorcycle and shut blankety blank up? And I went, oh, that's not a bad idea. And the rest is history. I've been building shocks for bikes ever since.
Really? You just started a business?
Well, so I built a set for my bike, and probably about a month later went on a ride. We were in North Carolina, and we had the weekend off, and me and a bunch of guys went on a motorcycle ride. And one of the guys that rode with us had hurt his back several months prior. We'd been out, we probably had 400 or 500 miles behind us. And we were, on our way back home, and we still had a couple hours to ride, and it was killing him. So he asked and I had the biggest bike out of the group at that time. And so he asked if he could ride my bike because it was a Road King and it would be more plush than the Dyna he was riding. I said, absolutely. And he's like, man, I don't know what you did to this bike, but make my bike do this. So I built shocks for his bike, and then I ended up building shocks for his brother's bike. And then I ended up building shocks for another friend. And next thing you know, yes, I started a business. And I was just kind of doing it because I was still working at GM Racing. I was still working with the race teams. So I kind of did that on the side. And then I just grew it as time went by and continued to grow it. So yeah, it was by accident.
Well, it seems pretty cool that you've been into racing your whole career, and then you segue into the suspension focus. Your company, Suspension Technologies, mostly focuses on Harleys?
Yes, mostly Harleys. We've got some stuff now for the Indians.
Okay.
Okay. I do some stuff for the early Hondas. We're going to really promote or get into the new Indians. We're increasing our product line there. I'm actually hoping to get into some other, like maybe the Can-Am Spiders and some of the other platforms out there. Sport bikes, I love sport bikes, don't get me wrong, and I'm impressed with the way sport bike guys ride, the way, it's impressive. That's just not kind of our forte, if you will. There's, Owens does a great job with sport bikes. We kind of got off into the cruiser world. That's kind of where we're going to stay, but we're going to, grow in some other platforms, but more the cruiser and the boulevard stuff.
Before we got on here, we talked a little bit about suspension in general, because I think that there's a lot of misinformation about why you'd want to upgrade your suspension or why it's so important to a motorcycle. Like, most people think they know how it all works. But I don't think that's actually the reality. So maybe you can explain a little bit.
Well, you're spot on. First of all, what's kind of cool about motorcycles and motorcycle people is we all like different things. We're all different people. So, what you like to ride and what I like to ride are way two different things. But we buy the same bike. So we'll just use a Road Glide, for example. You buy a Road Glide, I buy a Road Glide. What you expect out of it and what I expect out of it are two different things. So the manufacturers try to be all to everyone, but they just can't. And so people will read these different things and, oh, the bike does this and the bike does that. They necessarily might not be feeling that. It might be planted in their head by what they read, but it's not what they're feeling. So a good suspension dialed in for the owner will allow the owner to feel so many different things that they didn't feel before. And that can enhance the riding experience. It can also make it worse too. If I dial a bike in for you that I would like, you're going to go, man, this is no good. So the individuality of it is to get people to ride what they like, but also works very well for them, and then once they're comfortable, they can, push the bike more or enjoy the ride more or the handling and things like that. So there's a way more to it than, oh, hey, this is just a good looking shock.
And you're doing both the rear shocks and also front forks?
Yes, we do fork cartridges. In our fork cartridges, we have the piston, which is deflective disc valving. We have a floating piston. We have a base valve. The nitrogen gas and oil never touches each other in my product. They some of these companies, they push an emulsion shock. They're mixing gas and oil together. Gas and oil doesn't mix well. So we separate it. And then with our front cartridges, we have compression and rebound evenly in both sides. Some companies out there do compression on one side, rebound in the other. That's fine. We prefer to do it compression and rebound in both sides. And then the way we balance the base valve to the piston assembly, that allows us to use low nitrogen gas pressure versus a higher gas pressure. And again, it allows the springs to do its job. It allows the valving to do its job without fighting gas spring on top of a linear spring. And it just gives you a better experience all the way around in the cartridges, and the same in the shock for that matter as well.
How often would somebody need to get them rebuilt?
Well, that's a great question. That is a great question. Our product, the way we've engineered it and designed it and set it up, you should never have to rebuild it. Okay. It is completely rebuildable. There are people out there that will push it. So at 100,000 miles, we will rebuild it. We'll rebuild it no matter what. We have a true lifetime warranty, but we'll get into that later. There's other products out there, very, very good products. I'm not saying anything bad about these products. They need to be rebuilt around every 10,000 miles or every 20,000 miles. It just depends on the type of oil they use, the additives in the oil, the type of bushings, the seals, all that. We've gone to great lengths to use real high-end bushings, Teflon impregnated bushings, the rod material that we use, the seals, the oil. It makes a big difference. And so, we've set it to where you can put it on your bike. You can, set your first and second adjustments, and you should never have to touch it again. If it were to fail, then of course it's completely rebuildable. And we have customers that after about 4 or 5 years will say, hey, I'm going to send them back. Just check them out. Absolutely, no problem. And we send them back to them. So it just depends on what product you have out there and what you're doing with it.
Which actually leads me into the next question, because you initially talked about racing, but then your friend who had the lower back problems. So how does one pick out exactly what product they need?
So if you're going to be real aggressive, if you're a real aggressive rider, you possibly do track days, or you want to do the tail of the dragon and get your picture every weekend up there, then you look at what suits your needs. Back in the day, the double adjustable and triple adjustable shock, the average rider didn't spend the kind of money for that. Now they came on sport bikes, but the average Harley rider didn't spend that money. Now they do in some areas because of the Bagger Racing League. There are some younger riders out there that are going to do track days. So then that helps you look at what you're going to do with your bike. There's old guys like me out there. You know what? We want to put on a set of shocks. We want to have initial setup, and we're never going to touch them again. So it depends on what you're trying to do or what you plan on doing. A lot of guys that came off the sport bikes, they want to go to a shock that is more aggressive versus a boulevard or a Cadillac ride, if you will. So we're seeing, and what's really cool, I love watching the younger generation come into our sport because their whole mindset is different. And a lot of them did come off sport bikes. So, they want that more sport shock. They want that shock with the stiffer valving and the stiffer springs and things like that to push the bike even harder than what I would or the average rider would.
You also mentioned the racing portion of it. So is this drag racing, or because of the bagger series that they are starting to bring their Road Glide onto the tracker?
So I do some shocks for some drag racers. We've done some stuff for T-Man Performance. It's worked out great. We've done a lot of stuff for his customers. The guys out of All American Cycle do a lot of drag racing. We do a lot of things for them. So we do a lot of drag racing. We do a lot of stuff for the guys that are on the like the track day. They take the Dynas and they're doing the track days with them. Some of the guys are even using the street glides to do track days. So we do that as well. The drag racing is probably 10%. The track day stuff for us is probably 15%. Everything else is the guy that's the cruiser. He just wants to have a great ride. Still wants good handling, but he wants to have a nice, good controlled ride. Wants to be able to feel what the bike's doing so he can react in the situation. But he's got his feet up on the peg. He's drinking his coffee. He's more kicked back versus the guy. My son, prime example. He's going to set a track record getting to and from work on his motorcycle. But he's 30 years old. He came off of sport bikes and now he's to go fast Harleys. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that people don't really maybe understand how good their bike can be unless they've experienced
Very
this.
true.
So is there any way that people can try your product if they don't, without buying it first?
Yes and no. So to answer that question, one of the things that we say, it says in our literature, if you buy my product and you put it on your bike in the first 15 days, it either is not doing what you want it to do or you're not 100% satisfied with it, you've tried to adjust it, make it work, I'll give you your money back and we'll still be friends. That's not a problem. We have in certain situations, I'm going to use Laconia. You and I met in Laconia.
Mm-hmm.
I have had people come to me and say, well, I've heard of your stuff or I've never heard of your stuff, but I'd really like to try. I'm like, okay, look, here's this. Give me your credit card information. We're going to set your bike up, go down the road, take off, have fun. Okay. If you don't come back within 24 hours, I'm charging your credit card. If you come back and tell me how wonderful it is or how terrible it is, whatever the case may be, we'll go from there. I've never had anybody come back and say, take these off. I've never had anybody not come back, period. They've always come back and said they love it. The majority of our customers, they want to put them on and then they're going to go riding and they want to spend one day seeing the vendors, whether it's us, the seat guys, the handlebar guys, and then they want to go enjoy the event. So typically we just tell them, we'll put this on your bike. If you're not 100% satisfied, bring it back. We'll put your bike back to stock, give your money back, and we'll still be friends. I've never had to do that, but I'll be happy to.
I like that you stand by your product and it's made in the U.S.
Yes, it's all made right here in Florida. We're very proud of the fact that it's all made in the United States of America. That is extremely important to us. Keeping our neighbors and friends employed, keeping the product here in the United States, part of the United States economy is important to us. So we're very proud of that fact. And we do stand behind it. Our stuff has a lifetime warranty. I just got off the phone from a gentleman. He bought our product 7 years ago, and he's a prime example. He says, it still feels great, but it's been 7 years. Can you look it over? Sure. And if there's an issue, we just simply replace it or rebuild it. It's that simple.
You had mentioned something in passing, which was that one of the misnomers was that you can't, or not to say you can't lower your bike, but that it'll adversely affect the bike. And you said that that's actually not always true.
You're correct.
Okay.
It is not always true. So you can lower, there's a correct way to do this. You can lower your bike For example, I'm going to use a Street Glide, for example. You can lower the rear of a Street Glide 1 inch. You can lower the front 1 inch safely and comfortably. And actually, if you think about it, when you lower that bike an inch in the front, an inch in the rear, you're at stock trailing rate. You're just an inch lower. So you've lowered the bike evenly, but you can lower the back of that bike 1 inch safely and comfortably and lower the front. What you can't do is you can't lower it 2 or 3 inches, okay, because you run into all kinds of issues there. You can't lower the front of a bike over the center line of the bike. So the front, sport bikes are front down versus, there's more weight on the front of the sport bikes. The sport bikes steer quicker. They respond quicker. Harleys are not engineered to do that. The Harley touring bikes, I'm not saying Pan America or things like that, but, the Street Glides and Road Glides. But you can safely lower them. You just can't lower them too much. I get guys, I want to lower the front of my bike 3 inches. No, you don't. First of all, you're going to bang the fender into the eyebrow, and that custom paint's going to look like hell. Second of all, it's going to steer so quick, you're going to get in trouble before you ever leave your driveway, and it's going to ride like crap. So there's 3 things why you don't want to go too much. But if you do it correctly in the right amount, you can do it all day long. So, and also too, a lot of guys will buy these aftermarket things that, some companies call them relocation brackets. Some companies call them lowering blocks. And what they, in essence, do is the shock absorber, here's a shock body. In the perfect world, a shock could be straight up and down. But a shock on a bike is like this right now. Well, when you put those relocation brackets or lowering blocks, you lay that shock down even farther. So the farther you lay it down, the harder it is to compress. I can't believe I don't have a shock on my desk. Yeah, really, you would think I would have one. The harder it is to compress.
You're talking about a lowering link.
Right, a lowering link.
I want to just, because you're using different language, which is great, but I also just want to, for the sport bike people.
Sport bikes and some of the, Honda VTX and some of the other bikes, they use a lowering link. That's a whole different, some of those in that world work out very well because what it does, it just drops the shock down versus lay it down farther. In the Harley world, it angles it too far, and then the shock doesn't want to compress, the shock doesn't want to do its job, and the shock will not be efficient at all. So there is a correct way to do it. You can do it safely. You just can't do it, too much. And there is the right way to do it.
So are you saying that you could, through the suspension by the rear shock and the front forks, that you could actually lower it down without a lowering link?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you can put, and here's a prime example. So the new Harleys all come with 13-inch, the new Street Glides, Road Glide, they come with 13-inch shocks on it. And that was 22. So that started in 23. I don't know if it's all year or mid-year. I'd have to look. But in 22, that same bike came with a 12-inch rear shock. So if you put that 12-inch shock from Harley or from me on that bike, you just lowered it 1 inch. You took the 13 off, put the 12 on it, you lowered it 1 inch. Safe way, great way to do it. If you go out there and you buy a 10-inch shock from someone and you lower that bike far, you're going to have all kinds of problems. You're going to, the tire's going to hit the fender. But you can put, an 11-inch on that bike, and you can lower the front accordingly, get the ergonomics correct. The bike will ride and handle just great.
So that was a very specific model and year that has this particular problem. If somebody doesn't know that they have a 13-inch versus a 12-inch, they could get themselves into trouble by putting the wrong modification on. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you seen any other issues like that?
Yeah. Well, we've seen it, again, I'm going to use 83, 84, 5 dyno lowriders. Okay. Guys will put a lowering shock or a lowering bracket, and they'll lower the dyno too far. When it hits a bump, the brake caliper hits the fender.
Ooh.
Okay. And if you got a beautiful paint job, that's gone. You got a nice dent in the fender, it dimples it outwards. Okay. So we've seen all kinds of weird stuff. Believe me. I've seen guys lower the front end with a Ziz wheel, just cut the springs or heat them up with a torch. If the bike is a show bike and you're not going to ride it, okay, you're going for a certain look. But if you're going to ride that bike and put miles on it, you want to do this correctly. But yeah, we've seen, to answer your question, I've seen bikes all bike, and I've seen it done with Hondas. I've seen it done with Kawasaki's. I've seen all kinds of weird stuff out there where they've lowered it. I'm like, how did you even get it to this point? How did you ride it here? So we've seen some really bizarre stuff, believe me.
And where can people see you?
So you can go to our website, Suspension Technologies USA.
Okay.
You can see us at, we do Laconia every year. We start off our year. It's interesting the way we do it here in Florida. So there's a small show in January. It's Gibtown Bike Fest, and it's a great show, but it's just a small weekend local show. Although what's kind of cool about that time of year in Florida is you got a lot of snowbirds here. Well, they're looking for something to do, so they come to the local bike shows or that show. So there's a lot of people there from New York, Massachusetts, Michigan, Ohio, because they're snowbirds. And then we do Daytona, which is the first real big show for us, Daytona Bike Week. And we do some smaller ones in between. Then we do Laconia. Now we're getting ready to go to Sturgis. Today I've been running around like a crazy man, getting everything done for Sturgis. We're getting the trailer loaded, inventory, getting everything caught up. So we also do, we're going to do the Bourbon Bike Rally in September. In years past, we've also done Milwaukee. So the show circuit, moves around a little bit for us, but we do most of the big ones. And then after Sturgis, like I said, we'll do Kentucky, and then we'll do Biketoberfest. Now, what's cool about Biketoberfest is they started the weekend before. They have Triketoberfest. So they do basically a trike weekend, and then they do Biketoberfest. We go for the whole thing, and we have a blast. Because we're the only one in the industry that has designed and engineered a shock specifically for the trikes. A lot of guys take a shock that's kind of for another bike and they adapt it to the trike, if you will. But we engineered trike specific. It's got the right springs, it's got the right valving, it's got the right bushings, all that stuff. So Trike Fest is a lot of fun.
It seems like the trike industry has been growing a lot.
Yes, the baby boomers. You got a lot of guys. I myself, I just bought a RG3. I still have my other bikes, but I bought a trike for a number of reasons. But, as I don't want to quit riding. I never want to quit riding. So, there's times where I should be on a trike. And so it works out great. There's other times I'm on my limited. But as we get older, a lot of us are stubborn and we want us to be out there doing it so that the trike industry has helped. We've got a lot of military veterans, a lot of great guys coming back from the military. They've got leg issues. Trike is ideal. I think when Harley, I don't know this for a fact, but my brain wants to tell me Harley was looking at our servicemen going, hey, these guys are going to want to keep riding and we're going to make it so they can. And so they just ramped up the trike business, which I think was awesome.
I ask everybody this. So how many motorcycles do you own?
Currently I have limited Road Glide and an RG3 trike. And I have a Dyna. I just acquired that last week. So it's currently 4. There's been times when I've had many more. There's times when I've only had 1, but right now that's what I have.
All right. So. Is there anything that you're really excited about? Like that you're like, I have to make a product for this?
I'm excited. We're coming out with some new stuff down the road for the inverted front ends. I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about some of the stuff that we're actually going to do for the Indians. This business in general excites me. I love this business. I love the people. So every day is a new adventure for me. So it always makes me smile every day. But I guess I'd have to say for that, the new inverted stuff probably is what I'm most excited about right now. I've heard some through the grapevine, some new stuff that Harley possibly has coming. And I'm looking into, I was sitting here earlier today, scratching some stuff on a paper. So as I pay attention to what's coming down the line, I'm looking at, some pretty cool stuff down the road that I think will be nice, maybe active suspension or stuff.
Ooh, so. That's cool. I want to note that when we met through a mutual friend at Laconia. Your booth / setup was really impressive and nice because you were so approachable and answering questions from people, and likewise the guys that were working for you. So I think that, one of the things that if people are interested in your product, they should definitely stop by your RV.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess maybe the
That's
truck
what we
isn't
call it
better.
now. Yeah. Yes. Our mobile
Design unit.
showroom and workshop. Yes.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves. I take great pride in the fact that, yes, I am approachable. All of my guys are approachable. They're great. All of us are very passionate about the industry and this part of the industry. Steve Greenstein has been with me for many years. He has been in this industry forever. He has run Harley shops, been a GM for Harley dealerships. He has been around this forever. One of my guys that doesn't go on the road anymore, he's been with me since 2012, and he's only worked in the Harley industry. And he's been working on Harley since he was 12 years old. My younger guys that are with me all come from the dealership world. They love it. They're good. And that's why I couldn't do this without the crew that I have. I have an amazing crew. They're super, super great. They make life wonderful, but we're all very approachable. And even, and I say this all the time, I tell people, even if you have a question, let's say you have a set of JRIs on your bike, very good product, and you have a question, and you happen to be Sturgis or Laconia, come ask me. I've been in this industry forever. There's not a set of shocks out there I don't think I've taken apart, rebuilt, and put on. We have shock dynos. All of our stuff runs on, we have a crank dyno, we have an electromagnetic dyno. All of our stuff gets dyno tested. So I've played with everything out there. And again, when you work in the industry and you work in racing, it's not all one manufacturer. So you learn all these different things. So I tell people, if you have a question about your product, just ask me. I'll be happy. I can't tell you how many times I will set up someone else's, a guy will buy a set of shocks from a dealership and they're not set up right. And he's come, I hate these, take them off and put your stuff on. Whoa, wait a minute. You just spent a buttload of money for these. Let me adjust them, see if you like them then, and we'll go from there. And 90% of the time they come back and go, this is awesome. Great. Thank you. Have a great day. It's all good.
We're all part of the same motorcycle family.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, everybody, I want to share, enjoy your motorcycle, tune it to you. It used to be back in the day, everybody, big motor, didn't pay any attention to brakes or suspension. Now, a lot of people pay attention to suspension. It makes a huge difference. In my opinion, and this is very biased, I want to say that right now, the suspension is the first thing you should do, then the motor. However, I get it. But I just want to say to have fun and enjoy the ride. Will you be at Sturgis this year?
Unfortunately not. I wish, because I've never actually been, and I've gotten 2 invites to go. So I think I have to definitely go out there next year.
So like I said, we met in Laconia. Will you be doing Biketoberfest by any chance, or any of the Bike Week next year, Daytona, anything like that?
I might be. I'm not sure yet. And I also might be at Barber.
Okay.
Vintage Days. I don't know if you're going to do that. But,
awesome.
But really what I want to do is try a motorcycle before and after. So I'm putting that out there. We'll figure that out at some point.
Yeah, there's somebody just contacted me, but long story short, you get a bike and we will do before and after. Okay. Absolutely. Hands down. So we'll make that happen. Okay. No problem.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Excellent. And to everybody else, ride smart. Ciao.